This week, we're matching the hatch as we spoonfish the forest of the upper Pit River arm of Shasta Lake in early fall with Mark Lezane, editor of Bass Angler magazine, and pro bass angler Russ Meyer. I'm Justin Wolff, and this is Angler West Television.
Well, if I don't get a bite in the next 3 or 4 minutes, the spoon is coming out.
So much bait on the top. I should be able to get something up here.
I was able to spinnerbait on the flats and get whacked, but the spoon was hands down the bait.
There's one. Oh! That was a baby one.
So all of these trees are they're just ambush points for all of what you see there.
Nice.
But see how blank it is down below?
It's like dead.
Yeah. And then, and it's kind of been that. It'll drop down to 30 in places, but the zone seems to be, where a lot of times up here, you're spooning at 50, 60, but not lately.
Russ Meyer has brought Mark Lezane to one of his favorite areas for spooning on the Pit River arm of Shasta Lake. And while they started off throwing a swim bait and a topwater lure, it didn't take long for them to switch to the
I
spoon.
think it's about as big as the bait.
As long as you're going toward the tree, it's fine to pitch into the tree.
And it'll kind of flutter down.
Yeah, as the boat's drifting in,
And imagine those fish will hang off the tree a ways also, so
Oh yeah.
maybe you can get those ones that are sitting out a ways, like that one.
Yeah, he was down near the bottom there. There's a lot of bait in here, so there's just so many fish in here that the bigger fish are just laying back, and you just got to try either an isolated tree that doesn't have as many fish on it, and you got one big one, or you'll have 10,000 little guys, and you might get one side of the tree that has a big fish on it. So the key here is just to make a million casts, catch a lot of fish, and eventually you'll end up with some nice ones. So, and you usually don't get any real toads, but up to 4 pounds. But there's a lot of them. So you just have to weed through all these little guys and you'll come up with the big ones though. But what's nice about this though is, you can take anybody up here, kids, wives, newcomers. People have been doing it for a long time, and you catch 100 fish a day, and it's just a lot of fun when you got that many fish biting. You don't lose too many spoons in the trees once in a while. Like I just got hung up here, but usually you can shake them loose. That was fishing line. Some of the trees will have all the 8-inchers on it. And then you pull up to another tree and they'll have 13, 14 inchers on it. And then the next tree will have all 2-pounders on it. But there's a big forest here, so you just gotta, did you see that?
Just gotta weed through it.
Yeah, I dropped that one and the spoon hit the water, and there must have been one chasing the other one, and he flew out of the water after it.
You catch spoonfish here all year, or is it usually just in the fall? Can you catch them in the springtime too? And
it's pretty much around the clock up here. It's, as long as the fish are eating shad, there's all kinds of fish to be had, you know, whether it's summer, winter, fall. You know, they're just different depths, and you know, and it's all bait related and temperature controlled. So when you find fish that are in, you know, the bait fish that are in 50, 60 feet, there's always going to be fish feeding on those, you know. So electronics is the key. You just got to find them on your electronics and then find the schools of bait that have fish on them, and there you have it.
So just about any time of the year, if you're fishing and you see a school of bait, you can drop a spoon down here on them and should be able to get some fish.
Yeah. And right now, they really are relating to these flats. It's a typical pattern on Lake Shasta in the fall. Anytime you can find flats, the fish are going to be in, you know, anywhere from 5 to 50 feet on these flats, and they're just roaming and pinning these bait fish up on these trees or ledges that are on the flats. And sometimes they'll rush them right up to the shoreline, I mean, inches of water. And that's when your topwater and all that really pays off. But right now I'm looking at the graph, and the fish are all up in the top 10 feet, where the other day they were down more like 20, 25. There's still some fish down there in 25, but
So the graph is the whole key, is just to figure out where the fish are and get your spoon down there, right down below the bait, right in between the fish. And
yeah, it's just on fire with fish.
For more information about today's episode, visit anglerwesttv.com.
It's just on fire with fish.
We're on Shasta Lake, where Russ Meyer and Mark Lezane are just getting warmed up for at least 100 fish a day.
I can even catch spoonfish.
Oh, by the end of the day, you'll be a pro, man. There's a rat pack underneath of us here, too. And there's a lot of good crappie in here, too.
Spoon fishing, I would think you could just about get any fish that lives down there that
Literally.
that eats shad.
Yep. See all these springs coming up?
Catch catfish too, spooning?
Yeah, big ones.
Oh,
20 pounders,
oh,
man.
jeez.
There's so many fish in here. Now see, here's some good fish. This right here is an isolated big fish. So, you know, that could either be a carp or a big bass or a catfish. You know, you'll see a definite difference between the bait, the smaller bass, and then a big fish. They show up with a much bigger arch. We're going to drift in shallow to these tighter trees and make sure we're not missing any kind of a shallow water bite. You know, and if we are, then we could start throwing, you know, swim baits, crank baits, spinner baits up really shallow, and sometimes the bigger fish will be up there. But right now we're just kind of shopping for whatever it has to offer, whether the fish are going to be, big fish are going to be shallow, deep, and then sometimes they're shallow but over deep water. So there's so many variations that we're going to try. But the good thing is we have the #1 key is a lot of bait. As long as you have the food source around, you're going to find fish. Oh, that was a decent fish. Got off though.
Maybe they're up here a little more shallow.
It's amazing how little you get hung up using a treble hook in the middle of a tree. And there's a decent one. Oh, he's snagged, I think. But yeah, he's snagged. But yeah, you don't get hung up very much. You'd think throwing around a big treble hook in the middle of the trees, yanking them around with all these bushes, and that you'd be losing spoons constantly. But you know, there's a couple of things to remember when you're doing this in the trees. That if your bait stops, and
You want to wait till it see if it's swimming first.
there's something swimming here. It's decent.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Getting better.
But when they're, you definitely do not want to yank if the thing isn't moving, because you're just going to bury the hooks right in the middle of a tree. But If you just take your time and shake it loose, it'll come out every time. If you bury the hooks in the tree, you're going to lose that bait. This guy,
He wanted it.
yeah, he did.
Man, these fish fight.
Yeah, they do.
Little teeny one he's pulling.
I know. They just all think they're big boys.
Freshwater tuna.
That guy was decent. But the
They
it's so
start to
funny.
feel decent when they're
Yeah.
12 inches long.
I know. Yeah, and you know that's the thing about the spots is they're hardcore fighters.
Yeah,
too,
they
you know?
are.
So a 12-inch spot is a lot different than a 12-inch largemouth.
You catch many largemouth doing this?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. When
Goes
you're
right
around
next to the trees and on the flats where the largemouth usually are.
the largemouth are making a really big comeback on this lake right now, and the smallmouth.
Well, I know some people planted largemouth here a few times.
Well, it's, you know, my opinion of it is it's all, well, it has to do with the entire thing of fish, because the largemouth for about 4 years or so, you know, we had those drought years and all their beds were just high and dry every April, May, June. You know, the lake would drop down 40, 50 feet and you'd have no spawners. Everything was dry. But for the last 3 years, we've had great water tables, you know, full, and we started having every year, like all the way up to the middle of June, end of June, the lake was full to the lips. So consequently, I started seeing, you know, massive schools of spots, largemouth, the crappie and bluegill, just huge.
That's
Schools
great.
of crappie like the size of a house, thick schools that big of crappie, and bluegill and bass and shad. And so everything really grew. And when I'm fishing for salmon, I talked to guys that used to fish salmon years ago on the lake, and they said, oh, they used to always be 8 pounds. And I remember spooning for bass 20 years ago and catching 8-pound, 9-pound salmon. And they said, well, we haven't seen that in years. And I could drive around on a bass boat, wide open or 3/4 of throttle, into a cove, pre-fishing, looking for bait balls, you know, and just drive in and drive out. And you'd see these huge schools of bait, and that's where you'd start fishing. And if you didn't see any bait, you just kept on rolling. Well, I haven't seen that in the last 10 years, except for now.
Now it's starting to come back.
It's coming back since we've had these high water level years. All that food chain's coming back, and so I think you're going to start seeing the 8-10 pound salmon again, the largemouth,
Big spot.
yeah, the whole thing. So we're going to have some great fishing coming up.
Welcome back to Shasta Lake.
There's a
I'm
good one.
Justin Wolff. Russ Beyer and Mark Lazane are catching spotted bass one after the other with spoons that closely resemble the threadfin shad that provide a primary forage base for Shasta Lake's bass.
On a sonic bait fish. This lure real similar to the crippled herring, just has a little bit different fall than Hopkins, and just give the fish a little different look at it, and we're getting a few more on it. In case you wondered why these fish are hitting this spoon, this is a fish we caught just spit up this shad. Looks just like this spoon fluttering down there. So nice gel base stays on here for a little while. You know, there's flats all over Lake Shasta everywhere. So how do you pick out a good flat from a not so good flat?
Well, the primary reason I like this flat and the other ones is you have the main creek channel is very close by. It runs right up and down near the outer edge of these trees. So you've got a 50, 60 foot creek channel and immediately pops up into 20 feet or less up on this flat. And you got targets, but the fish, they can quickly hurry up and go back down to that 50, 60 feet if they choose to do so. And that's really what makes a good flat, is just having great access to deep water and a lot of cover up on the flat.
Oh, nice one.
Yeah, decent. Boy, he was in the first, he was not all that big, but decent though. But he was in the first foot, ate it like a spinnerbait. Whoa, a little heavier than I thought. He's been eating some shad. He wasn't getting off. You see when that, when they start getting the gray on that belly right there, those black spots, that's the beginning signs of an adult spot. He's a little short for an adult. Usually they're bigger than that, but could be a little different breed. But anyway, that one's been eating shad. He's fat. Sometimes you'll spot them on your electronics in the tree, and you have to turn your sensitivity down on the electronics when you're up next to a tree, because you get a lot of interference. So, you know, it's just bouncing all over the place. So if you turn it down, you can actually pick up the difference between the tree and the fish. And when you see a lot of fish and you're not getting many bites, just hang with it and try so many different little short pops or long strokes, sometimes almost just dead sticking it on the bottom or on a limb. But once you get a couple of fish to eat and they go crazy down there, you will ignite the whole school. And pretty soon, what started off to be really slow, it's one fish after another.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look at that.
It's a big shad too.
Talk about a mouthful. Poor guy. Too bad we didn't catch him in time. Yeah, this little baby crappie is down there eating shad, and he just happened to get one that couldn't quite fit in his mouth. Got
a little
stuck.
overkill there. Well, in the past few years, we've had this great spawn with crappie. So we see crappie that size, you know, in monstrous schools, like the size of a house, really tight schools of crappie that may be silver dollar size, maybe a little bigger. So I know in the future we're going to have a mega year of crappie. I mean, this lake's got great crappie in it anyway, but we have a lot of great crappie fishing to come.
Episode, visit anglerwesttv.com. Welcome back to the Pitt River arm of Shasta Lake. I'm Justin Wolff. Russ Meyer and Mark Lazane have been pounding trees with spoons with good success, but now they've decided to make a run farther upstream, all the way to where the Pitt River flows into the lake.
There's bait down there, it looks like, on the bottom.
At times, this transition zone will hold larger fish, but it doesn't seem to be the case today.
Not the size we were after, but there's fish down there. Water got down to 17 foot right here.
So, after a few more casts, Russ and Mark return to the forest of submerged trees, where the bryozoa thrive. These colonies of tiny invertebrates with an extremely complex life cycle are often mistaken for frog eggs, but they're actually filter-feeding organisms that thrive in nutrient-rich waters, along with the bass.
Not big, but he's decent. He's a fighter, though.
Oh,
Look at all the shad.
Oh, they got some shad laying.
These guys are spitting up some shad. That's why he's so strong. He's had a lot of protein.
Yeah.
He's just fat. Nice. Decent little fish. Fat. I just had one again.
But
There
he
it
was, that fish that he caught was definitely chumming.
So cool when you're getting bit down there, you can feel it. You pop your spoon up and it's like hitting a branch, but it's really hitting a fish. So
Yeah.
you're pulling it up and it goes bump, bump, and you just keep working it, and then 3 or 4 times, and then all of a sudden now you got a fish on. Oh,
They're on that bait.
this one chased it all the way up.
Yeah, right in hit through here. There's a big ball of bait there.
I don't know if there's any fish in it though,
You wonder. But not all of them are puking up the bait like that one you caught.
Oh, that's because that one is so big. Just bumping fish down there.
It keeps backlashing me because it hits it on the way down so many times.
There he is. I reeled it up and then stopped it halfway through. Oh, there's some shad on the surface. Yeah.
He thinks he is anyway.
He thinks he's big.
Yeah. That's what I like. When you can catch them like that while you're looking for a big fish, it makes it...
That's nice. 14 inches.
Yeah.
There he is. like fishing in a barrel full of fish. Oh, and on the spoon. Nice.
Nice. Yeah.
Oh, this one's spitting out crawfish.
These are the kind of bass we're looking for when we're spooning. If we can get, 5, 6 of these fish a day, then we're kind of happy, This fish is probably close to 3 pounds, and that's what makes for a great day of spooning on Lake Shasta.
Thanks for watching today's episode of Angler West TV. It's only with the sponsor support that this show is made possible, so please thank them when you can. Now get out there and do some great fishing.